you were a kid, did you ever think that one day I'd become a deacon?
No, I didn't even know what a deacon was, you know?
What was so you grew up in San Antonio?
For my first 9 years, yes, I grew up in San Antonio, which was a beautiful blessing because I got to grow up with my grandparents. That helped a lot.
Are you from a military family?
No, I'm not from no military family. I do have some of my uncles were in the military, but no.
Okay, so San Antonio, what brought you to Houston?
My mom, you know, we came over here to get a little bit, because when I say San Antonio, I mean in a very small city outside of San Antonio.
Okay.
So she came over here to the quote unquote big city, right? And so we came over here, and so yeah.
Okay, was it work that brought her?
Yeah, it was work that brought her over here.
So what was your childhood like as a Catholic? Are you a cradle Catholic? You were
cradle Catholic. You know, my grandparents, my mom went on with the first 9 years. As you know, if you take any form of child development class, those are the sponge years. And so going to mass every day with my grandmother.
Okay.
You know, praying the rosary every day with my grandmother, you know, and so that was big. That was big for me. And so it's my whole foundation, my whole faith is based founded because of her. So yeah. No, I never thought that I would be a deacon. I always knew I'd be involved with the church and help out the church, which I've done.
So you were an altar boy, and
yeah, I was definitely an altar boy over there, and so yeah, and so it was. I mean, it was a good experience because it made me comfortable around the altar.
Do you remember what parish?
Yeah, it's in a small town called Carson City, Texas, where I was born. It's St. Cornelius is the name of the parish. And
so, is your grandma still?
No, she's not with us anymore.
She's not with us anymore?
No.
But was she still alive to see you become a deacon?
No, unfortunately. I know. She was not alive for that. And
your grandfather?
Neither him. He wasn't there either. I always love it because I always say that my grandmother taught me the love of our faith, and my grandfather taught me the law of the faith. Let's put it that way. So, yeah.
Okay. How about your parents?
So, growing up, like I said, I grew up with a single mom.
Okay.
But one of the reasons why also my mom, we moved, I said earlier, for work, but it's also because she met someone.
Okay.
And so she had remarried, and so he adopted me. So that's why my last name is Croson, which is actually a German name.
Okay.
So he was German, and so he adopted me, and so he was a good blessing in helping me and raising me. So, I grew up here in the Bear Creek area, and so when I came here, unfortunately, we would go to Sunday Mass, but I wasn't involved in the parish life as I was with my grandmother.
How old were you at that point when you moved? 9, did you say?
Yeah, I was about 9
years old.
Yeah,
and that was around the time that your mom got remarried.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Okay,
and so we moved over here, and so yeah, we would go to St. Elizabeth Ancene Catholic Church, which is right there on kind of like on Highway 6 and.
So your biological father was not in the picture at all, or
no, he wasn't. He is in my life now, and so I have a story on that too.
Oh, we'll get into that. Okay, so he wasn't at all at that point. Okay, so that probably plays kind of into your wanting to be more part of your kids' lives as a deacon.
Exactly.
You know, and missing that must have made it hurt even more, missing some of those.
It did. It really did.
Your daughter's ballet recital.
And I was just waiting for my wife. I'm like, say, uncle, we get out of this, you know? And so, yeah. And there was many, but again, I have such wonderful children.
How was your stepfather?
He's a good guy.
Was he Catholic as well?
No, he's not a Catholic, which is one of the reasons why we kind of strayed away from our faith.
Okay.
Right? But he's a good man.
So how old were you when you kind of strayed away?
For my faith would have to be when I got into high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't involved.
Not going to Mass as often?
Not going to Mass as often, just too busy.
All the excuses, yes.
Yeah, just too busy with things. But I was a good kid. I really was. So,
did your grandma get on your case about?
She did, but again, she always showed me the love of our faith.
Of course,
right.
That's what sticks with you.
Yeah, and that's exactly. So she just told me she would always tell me the graces we get from going to masses. Never the you need to go, right? Never the you're sinning. None of that. No.
Were your grandparents still alive when you started the process of becoming a deacon?
I've never thought about that.
What year did they pass?
Yeah, it was 10 years ago. No, they weren't. They weren't. No.
Well, they know. They know.
I mean, yeah. Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. They were definitely there when I got ordained. I could feel them. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Okay, so you moved here to Houston, and then you kind of strayed away from the faith. What brought you back? How old were you at that point? What point in your life?
Well, and there's several stages to bringing me back, right? The first one is that when me and my wife, we had our first child, Christian. Okay. We're like, I just knew, we got to get him baptized. I mean, my grandmother coming right back up to me, just like her teachings, right? And
whispering in your ear,
whispering in my ear. Hey, we need to get back. We got to baptize him. And so we did that, and we put him in CCE. But it was a little crazy because even at that time, me and my wife, which is another. I have so many stories. Wow.
Oh, go ahead.
Me and my wife, we were married civilly, so we were just married civilly at the time. Okay.
How old were you at this point?
I was 22 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, we had our first child. We got him baptized. We had him at 21. We had him baptized about a year later, which I was around 22. Mm-hmm. And so when he got into elementary, at that point, I wasn't going to church at all. Yeah, I was. I was a CEO. That's right. Christmas and Easter only. That's right. So we would go then. And then, when my kid got old enough to go into formation, we did that. See, I was doing, at this point, I had allowed the devil to blind me to thinking I'm a lost cause. But I don't want the same for my children, right? So we had him in formation and everything, and that's when he was around 9 years old. He was, after being receiving communion for a few years, and I guess when he was around 9, he's like, "Hey, Dad, why don't you and Mom receive communion?" Because I'm like,
So you were going to church but not receiving communion.
Yeah, and this is not all the time, right? We weren't going to church all the time. Again, back to the CEO thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked with my wife, and I said, I don't know. I mean, there's no way they're going to accept us back. We've already been married. We've been married outside the church, civilly for many years now. They're not going to accept. So we just dropped it. Then at 12 years old, it's all my firstborn son. At 12 years old, he becomes an altar server, and he starts bringing up the question again, like, "Hey, what's?" And we're like, "Wow, we've been married too long." But I'm like, you know what? I said, "You know what, Denise? We're going to make an appointment. And I don't care what the priest tells us. We're not going to leave out of there without him saying he'll still accept us back," right?
Because it is scary. It is sort of embarrassing in a sort of a way that you haven't,
Yes.
You weren't married in church and your kid is an altar server and everything. That must have taken a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah, I mean, my kid, he's a very good salesperson too, right? He's telling us, and here you're thinking you're just a lost cause, and I realize that more than ever now, that misconception that many, I guess, lost Catholics, I would say, think that they're lost causes.
People who feel they're too far gone,
and there's no such thing. There's work involved. I'm not gonna lie, there's work, but there's no such thing, and that's what happened with me and Denise. And so when I made an appointment, they signed us up with a Deacon Art Chin Fat there at St. Bartholomew. And I mean, me and my ignorance, I'm like, you see, babe, even the priest won't talk to us. He's giving us to some guy named Deacon. Again, I didn't even know at that time what deacons were, It's a wonderful story, and we go in there, and he literally, which I know now, he literally does the marriage prep questionnaire with you, which he takes one person out of the room, and he's only speaking to one of you. And he's asking you all the questions that are on the marriage prep questionnaire, and then vice versa. And then so we get in there, and he calls us both into the room. He takes off his glasses. He puts his hand on his forehead, which is, I know now that that's just what he does. It's got nothing to do with anything.
But at the moment, you thought he's thinking.
I grabbed my wife's hand and I said, "This is the moment." And I gave her that look, like, this is the moment where he's going to try to run us off, and we ain't going. And he goes, "Denise, Ray, both of you being here is a great blessing." And that was it. It just,
that's awesome.
The devil no longer had ties on me. I could see. I could actually see for the first time. I mean, such beautiful. And that's what started everything. So he told us, because we had been away from the faith so long, and he goes, "I can't really put y'all through marriage prep. Y'all been married already at 12 years." So he put us in the RCA program to audit, right? Because we already had our sacraments.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. I was part of the RCA, I think, 10 years after that. I fell in love with it.
So your wife, Denise, is she a cradle Catholic as well?
She's a cradle Catholic as well.
How was her upbringing in the faith?
I think she was the same. I mean, her and my in-laws, they traveled a lot.
Okay.
So my dad is my father-in-law was in the oil and gas business, so he would travel a lot in South America, and so I think they would just go to church when they could. Right?
Is she from Texas as well?
She was born in New York, Long Island.
Okay. So, and then where'd you meet her?
At a movie theater here in Houston. At a movie theater. So one summer we were working, and I was with my best friend Frank, who I still talk to this day, and we were going into the movie theater. There was a $1 movie theater off of Highway 6 and Clay Road, and there she was working in the ticket booth at nighttime. Back in the day, that's when the spiral perm was real popular. And I said, "Frank, look, that's going to be the girl I marry."
You said that.
I said that, and she to this day doesn't believe it, but it's absolutely true. I'm right here looking at Jesus himself, and he could testify it's absolutely true. And so I did everything and anything to get her attention, and so... yeah, here we are.
How old were you at this point? You were in high school?
No, at that point, I was already graduated high school, going into college, and so I was 19. Yeah.
Okay.
I was 19.
Is that movie theater still open?
No, it's there. The physical place is there, but I think they turned it into some daycare. I don't know what they turned it into, but it turned into something.
Do you ever go back?
We used to, right? I used to do the sentimental thing and go back with her, But, and I hate to say that, we started, when we started having more kids, we just got away from it, I guess. We have other sentimental value places now.
Of course. Over the years, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
So you decide that you're meeting with this deacon.
Yeah.
And he says, it's great that you guys are here. You go through RCIA, and then what happens next? I was given a second chance. So during that time of RCIA, one thing he says is that we have to marry you guys, right? We need to get you back in communion with the church. Yes.
So, and this is a beautiful thing because this was probably during the summertime. And so he wanted to marry us in October. And I'm like, okay. He goes, but in the meantime, you have to live as brother and sister. It was like 6 weeks actually before that, and go to confession.
Okay.
So it was beautiful living as brother and sister, because all that man was that I would take turns sleeping with my children, and so every night it's like you bond with your children, right? So before you go into bed, we're talking about things.
So brother and sister meeting in separate rooms.
Separate room, just literally like that. And so that's what we did. We went to confession. And then, on October 13th, we had our marriage convalidated.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What year was that?
That was going to be 2008.
Do you think the reason why you didn't receive communion was because you felt like because you hadn't been married in the church?
That's exactly why.
Was it subconsciously or consciously?
Just both, I would say.
Okay.
It was both, because this is the way I was raised, We definitely have to be very aware of your be very aware of yourself when you're receiving the body and blood of Christ, right? Make sure that you are in the good graces of the Lord. And so I was very raised with that, and so
it's awesome that your son was, pulling you towards that, asking you to do that.
He brings that up all the time now too.
He does.
Yeah.
Does he say, "Look at you now, huh, Dad? You're a deacon and everything"?
And sometimes I even pick on him too, because there'll be sometimes I'll tell him, "Hey, I need you to come," because he's 26 now, and so believe me, he has my blood. I know when I was 26, and so I'm like, "Hey, don't forget, make sure you go to mass, right?" Okay, Dad. Okay. Hey, you started all this a long time ago, so don't want to blame on yourself. So,